years collecting forgotten legends, the kind of stories whispered between old neighbors when the lights go out, when the pie's been eaten and the fire's dying low. Some of them are just tales to scare kids, but others linger because they're true. And one of those comes from a small town in Illinois, where every Thanksgiving, they eat the same pie. Every year, the whole town of Maple Hollow gathers for Thanksgiving. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, where the sheriff eats at the same diner as the kids from high school, and where the streets smell like cinnamon and roasted pumpkin. At the center of it all was Martha Bell's Bakery, a warm brick building with fogged-up windows and a little golden bell over the door that chimed every time someone walked in. Her pumpkin pie was legendary. People drove from 3 towns away just to buy a slice. Martha said her recipe came from her grandmother, a secret that keeps the town together, she'd smile. No one ever questioned what she meant. On the night before Thanksgiving, Martha would stay late in the bakery, lights glowing through the fogged windows. Locals said they could smell the pies all the way from Main Street. Cloves, nutmeg, something earthy underneath. A few curious kids once peeked through the back window. They swore they saw her whispering over the dough, tracing strange symbols in the crust before sliding it into the oven. No one believed them, of course. Maple Hollow wasn't the kind of place where dark things happened. That year, everything started like always. Families gathered, laughter filled the air, and the pies sat in the center of every table like small golden suns. Everyone who ate Martha's pie said the same thing. It tastes like home. But that night, things began to shift. A mother didn't show up to pick up her daughter from the neighbor's house. The pastor's lights stayed off the next morning, and by the end of the weekend, 7 people were missing. All of them had eaten from the same pie. When the sheriff went to question Martha, her bakery was closed. No lights, no smell of cinnamon. But in the front window, townsfolk saw something new. On the wall behind the counter hung a row of photographs, old Polaroids of smiling customers holding slices of pie. But these weren't just random customers. They were the missing ones. And their pictures hadn't been there before. The sheriff broke the door open. The pies on the counter were still warm, but the ovens were empty. No trace of flour, no utensils, no Martha. Only one pie cooling by the window. Its crust was shaped into a perfect spiral, and in the middle, a single slice was missing. Weeks later, when the town finally searched the old bakery cellar, they found it. A room lined with shelves of glass jars, each labeled with a year. Inside, what looked like grains of sugar, but under the flashlight, they shimmered red. The oldest jar was labeled 1943, the newest 2024. And in the middle of the room stood an open cookbook, stained and brittle, with a handwritten note. One life for one perfect pie. Their warmth keeps the town alive. After that year, Maple Hollow shut down for good. The houses were sold, the streets overgrown, and the bakery boarded up. But every November, people say they can smell that same pie drifting through the empty streets. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and something metallic underneath. Travelers who pass by claim they've seen light flickering in the bakery window and a shadow of a woman placing a pie on the sill. Some say If you follow the smell, you'll find a warm slice waiting for you and a photo frame with your name already written beneath it. I've heard many stories about haunted places and cursed recipes, but this one always stuck with me because every legend starts somewhere real and every pie has a price. So if you ever find yourself in a small town that smells like pumpkin on a cold November night, don't eat the pie. I've spent years collecting forgotten legends, the kind of stories whispered between old neighbors when the lights go out, when the pie's been eaten and the fire's dying low. Some of them are just tales to scare kids, but others linger because they're true. And one of those comes from a small town in Illinois, where every Thanksgiving, they eat the same pie. Every year, the whole town of Maple Hollow gathers for Thanksgiving. It's the kind of place where everyone knows your name, where the sheriff eats at the same diner as the kids from high school, and where the streets smell like cinnamon and roasted pumpkin. At the center of it all was Martha Bell's Bakery, a warm brick building with fogged-up windows and a little golden bell over the door that chimed every time someone walked in. Her pumpkin pie was legendary. People drove from 3 towns away just to buy a slice. Martha said her recipe came from her grandmother, a secret that keeps the town together, she'd smile. No one ever questioned what she meant. On the night before Thanksgiving, Martha would stay late in the bakery, lights glowing through the fogged windows. Locals said they could smell the pies all the way from Main Street. Cloves, nutmeg, something earthy underneath. A few curious kids once peeked through the back window. They swore they saw her whispering over the dough, tracing strange symbols in the crust before sliding it into the oven. No one believed them, of course. Maple Hollow wasn't the kind of place where dark things happened. That year, everything started like always. Families gathered, laughter filled the air, and the pies sat in the center of every table like small golden suns. Everyone who ate Martha's pie said the same thing. It tastes like home. But that night, things began to shift. A mother didn't show up to pick up her daughter from the neighbor's house. The pastor's lights stayed off the next morning, and by the end of the weekend, 7 people were missing. All of them had eaten from the same pie. When the sheriff went to question Martha, her bakery was closed. No lights, no smell of cinnamon. But in the front window, townsfolk saw something new. On the wall behind the counter hung a row of photographs, old Polaroids of smiling customers holding slices of pie. But these weren't just random customers. They were the missing ones. And their pictures hadn't been there before. The sheriff broke the door open. The pies on the counter were still warm, but the ovens were empty. No trace of flour, no utensils, no Martha. Only one pie cooling by the window. Its crust was shaped into a perfect spiral, and in the middle, a single slice was missing. Weeks later, when the town finally searched the old bakery cellar, they found it. A room lined with shelves of glass jars, each labeled with a year. Inside, what looked like grains of sugar, but under the flashlight, they shimmered red. The oldest jar was labeled 1943, the newest 2024. And in the middle of the room stood an open cookbook, stained and brittle, with a handwritten note. 1 life, for one perfect pie. Their warmth keeps the town alive. After that year, Maple Hollow shut down for good. The houses were sold, the streets overgrown, and the bakery boarded up. But every November, people say they can smell that same pie drifting through the empty streets. Cinnamon, nutmeg, and something metallic underneath. Travelers who pass by claim they've seen light flickering in the bakery window and a shadow of a woman placing a pie on the sill. Some say if you follow the smell, you'll find a warm slice waiting for you and a photo frame with your name already written beneath it. I've heard many stories about haunted places and cursed recipes. But this one always stuck with me, because every legend starts somewhere real, and every pie has a price. So, if you ever find yourself in a small town that smells like pumpkin on a cold November night, don't eat the pie. Thanksgiving was always the same in our house. The smell of roasted turkey, the sound of my dad's laugh echoing from the kitchen, my mom's playlist, old country songs she'd hum to while mashing the potatoes. Every year, my sister and I would come home, sit at the same table, and say the same things. I never thought much about it. Tradition feels safe, predictable. Until the year I noticed the pattern wasn't just a feeling, it was real. That year, everything started to repeat. It started with something small. My mom dropping the cranberry sauce. It splattered across the floor, and she said, "Oh, look at that, just like last year." We laughed, but then she said it again. Same words, same tone. Then my dad chuckled, same as before, and repeated his joke word for word. I thought maybe I was just tired. Maybe deja vu was tricking me. But when I looked at the clock, the second hand wasn't moving. It just ticked once, then froze. When it finally moved again, my sister asked, "Are you okay? You look pale." I nodded, but I noticed her fork hadn't moved either. The next day, or what I thought was the next day, I woke up to the smell of turkey again. Same sunlight through the curtains, same song on the radio. I walked downstairs, and my dad smiled. "Happy Thanksgiving, son." My mom laughed, holding the cranberry sauce. "Oh, look at that, just like last year." I dropped my plate. No one reacted. They just kept talking, repeating the same phrases, same laughter, same movements, perfectly aligned, like a script. I tried screaming. No one turned their head. Even the dog wagged its tail at the same rhythm, over and over. I tried everything, running outside, but the street was empty. No wind, no sound. Every door I opened led me back inside. The kitchen, the table, my family frozen in the middle of dinner. Sometimes I'd black out, and when I woke up, it was Thanksgiving again. Every year the same. The same meal, the same laughter, the same cranberry sauce. I counted 10 times, then 50. Then I stopped counting. No one aged, no one changed, but I did. Each loop made me feel heavier, like the air itself was closing in. I started noticing small cracks, a flicker in the corner of my eye, a shadow sitting at the end of the table that didn't belong to anyone. It was always watching me. One loop, I decided to stare back. When I turned my head, I finally saw it. A figure, tall, thin, wearing a mask shaped like a turkey's face. It sat where my grandmother used to sit, hands folded neatly, head tilted just slightly too far.
It didn't move, didn't blink. But every time my mom said, "Oh, look at that, just like last year," its head twitched. By the 50th loop, it started to whisper, "You're the only one who knows." I tried not to look anymore. I tried pretending everything was normal. But every time I looked up, it was closer. Once, I felt its hand on my shoulder. Cold, still. And then, "Eat," it whispered. "It's tradition." I looked down at my plate. The turkey was raw. The potatoes were gray. My family was smiling, chewing nothing. Their eyes were glassy, empty. That's when I realized they weren't repeating the day. I was. I went to the basement, a place I hadn't dared enter before. There were candles, old photographs. Every one of them showed the same dinner table, same people, same food, but not me. My chair was always empty. I don't know how long I've been here. Maybe it's been a year, maybe 1,000. The food never spoils, the radio never changes, and every Thanksgiving morning I wake up to the same smell, the same song, the same laughter. Except now, I say it too. "Oh, look at that! Just like last year." Sometimes, I wonder if this is what happens when a memory refuses to die. Maybe the day became too perfect, too routine, too sacred to let go. And so it loops, over and over, a holiday turned into a prison of smiles and warm light. I think the house remembers. It wants us here. It needs us. So when you sit down for dinner this Thanksgiving and your family says the same things in the same order, just listen. If the air feels too still, if the laughter sounds just a little too familiar, you might already be part of it. Oh, look at that. Just like last year. I got an email from a subscriber last week. They said, "Please tell this story. My uncle lived next door to the man they called the perfect neighbor in Florida. What happened there still haunts my family." It sounded like the start of any true crime documentary. Quiet suburbs, trimmed lawns, pastel houses. The kind of place where people wave from their driveways and borrow sugar from next door. But this one had something darker simmering beneath the sunshine. His name was Robert Dean, and everyone in the neighborhood thought he was the kindest man around. He watered his neighbors' plants, mowed their lawns when they were on vacation, and even brought cookies to the new families who moved in. People called him Mr. Perfect Neighbor. But my subscriber's uncle, Jim, said something about Robert always felt off. His smile lingered too long. His eyes didn't blink enough. And sometimes, late at night, Jim would see the glow of a camera light flashing from Robert's second-story window, pointed directly at his house. At first, Jim brushed it off. "Maybe he's filming birds," he told his wife. But the recordings didn't stop. They multiplied. Sometimes Robert would walk outside and greet them before they even opened their door, as if he always knew when they were about to leave. Then one morning, Jim found something strange on his front step. A small flash drive labeled Neighbors. Inside were videos,
dozens of them. Footage from cameras placed inside their home, their kitchen, their bedroom, their child's room. Jim's hands shook as he scrolled. Each file was titled by date, and the most recent one was from that very morning. They called the police immediately. Officers arrived, searched Robert's house, and found hundreds of hours of footage from every house in the neighborhood. He had mapped out the entire cul-de-sac, documenting their routines like a twisted anthropologist. But here's the part that still chills me. On one of the tapes, Robert was sitting in front of the camera, speaking directly into it. He said, "You can't trust your neighbors, not even the perfect ones." The investigation went public. Local news called it the perfect neighbor case. They found hidden microphones under mailboxes, wireless cameras disguised as porch lights, and recordings spanning years. But before Robert could stand trial, before he could even be properly questioned, he disappeared. His car was found near a swamp, doors open, engine still running. No footprints, no trace, just a final note taped to the steering wheel that said, "You're next, Jim." The person who sent me this story said their uncle moved out the very next day. He left Florida, changed his name, never came back. But sometimes he still gets letters. No return address, no handwriting, just one printed word: neighbor. Stories like this always remind me monsters don't just live in haunted houses or graveyards. Sometimes they water their lawns, smile when you pass, and wave goodnight through the window. So if your neighbor seems too perfect, maybe don't wave back. Thank you to the subscriber who trusted me with this story. I'm always honored when you share your real experiences or the ones that haunt your towns. Keep them coming. Your stories keep the dark alive, because sometimes the truth is the scariest thing of all. There's a street on Long Island where the wind doesn't sound right. It's quiet, too quiet. Locals say if you drive by 112 Ocean Avenue at night, you'll feel it before you see it. That sinking, heavy chill, like something watching from the dark windows. But once, this house wasn't famous. It was home, a place where the DeFeo family lived. Ronald, his wife Louise, and their 5 children. A family like any other, in a neighborhood that looked picture perfect. That all changed on November 13th, 1974. At 3:15 a.m., a shotgun broke the silence. 23-year-old Ronald Butch DeFeo Jr. walked from room to room. His parents, his 2 brothers, his 2 sisters, each of them shot as they slept in their beds. No one woke, no one screamed. When police arrived, they found the family lined up neatly, face down, every single one. The strange part, neighbors heard nothing, not even the gunshots. When asked why he did it, Ronald said, "The voices made me." That was the moment the legend began. A year later, George and Kathy Lutz bought the same house. They said they knew about the murders, but didn't believe in ghosts. They moved in with their 3 kids and a dog. Everything was fine for the first 3 days. Then the cold came. Not from the winter, but from the house itself. The temperature dropped suddenly, even when the fire was burning. Doors slammed on their own. The dog refused to go near the basement. George began waking up at 3:15 a.m. every single night, the exact time of the murders. He said he could hear whispers coming from the walls. Sometimes footsteps would cross the floor above him when everyone was asleep. Kathy claimed she saw a figure, a dark shape with eyes that weren't human. And their daughter Missy started talking to someone only she could see. She called it Jody. Jody says you shouldn't stay here.
After 28 days, they couldn't take it anymore. They fled in the middle of the night, left everything behind. Furniture, clothes, food still on the table. Even the dog's leash was found swinging on the porch. When investigators went inside later, they said the air felt wrong. One man claimed the walls oozed a sticky black substance. Another swore he heard a voice whisper, "Get out." They did. The story spread fast. Books, movies, documentaries. The Amityville horror became a cultural nightmare. But what was true and what was myth? Skeptics said it was all a hoax, that the Lutz family made it up. Others pointed out police reports, cold spots, photos of strange faces in the windows. And one priest, Father Pecoraro, claimed his blessing of the house was interrupted by a voice shouting, "Get out." Some things you can't explain away. Even now, decades later, no one lives there for long. Owners come and go. Some say the house feels peaceful now. Others say it never forgives. If you drive past 112 Ocean Avenue today, it looks like any other home. White siding, shuttered windows, fresh paint. But at night, if you stop for just a moment, you might notice a faint glow in the upstairs window. And if you listen closely, you can still hear a voice in the wind whisper, "Leave this house."
Have you ever wondered where horror truly begins? Not in a movie, not in a nightmare, but in a small town where the air smells of soil and silence. Plainsfield, Wisconsin, population barely 1,000. Everyone knew everyone, or thought they did. And then there was Ed Gain, a quiet man with an empty gaze who lived alone on a farm at the edge of town. They said he was harmless, just strange. A man who fixed things, helped neighbors, and talked too much about his dead mother. But behind those crooked walls, something was waiting. Something that even hell might have refused to claim. Because when the police opened that farmhouse in 1957, they didn't find a man. They found something else. When Sheriff Schley and his men stepped inside, the stench hit them first. Rot, blood, decay. And then the truth. A woman's head hanging from a hook in the kitchen. Human skin stretched like leather across chairs. Masks made of faces. And a belt sewn together from human nipples. They said some officers ran outside and threw up in the snow. One of them quit the force the next day. And in the middle of it all, Ed stood there, calm, almost proud. "I didn't kill most of them," he said. "I just dug them up." He would visit graves at night, digging up the bodies of women who looked like his mother, Augusta. He made lampshades from their skin, dresses from their flesh. He wanted to be her, to wear her. Silence for 2 seconds. The police found hearts in jars, skulls on bedposts, a face he would wear like a mask to feel close to the woman who gave him life and destroyed it. But here's what they never tell you in the movies. Ed Gein wasn't born a monster. He was made. His mother was everything, his God, his judge, his punishment. She told him women were evil, that sin lived in their skin, that the world was dirty and only she was pure. When she died, Ed lost his only voice of reason, twisted as it was, and the silence became unbearable. So he filled it with voices of the dead. He carved out faces to see her again. He made her out of corpses, because he couldn't make her out of memory. And that's what makes Ed Gein so terrifying. Not the bodies, not the blood, but the loneliness. Because deep down, it wasn't murder he wanted. It was connection. A way to bring back the one person who'd ever loved him, even if that love was poison. He didn't run. He didn't fight. When the police came for him, he simply said, "I've been waiting for you." They called him the Butcher of Plainfield, the inspiration for Psycho, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the Silence of the Lambs. Every horror icon with a blade owes something to him. But the real Ed Gein wasn't the roaring monster the movies made him. He was quiet, polite, almost invisible. That's the part that scares me the most. Because monsters aren't born in shadows. They grow in plain sight, fed by silence, by loneliness, by love twisted into fear. He died in 1984 in a mental institution, talking to voices only he could hear. No chains, no cells, just walls, white and quiet, like the snow that fell on his farmhouse the day they found the bodies. And maybe that's the real horror, that behind every face in the crowd, there might be another Ed Gein waiting. Not for victims, but for someone to notice. Because evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers your name. They call her Tall Betsy here in Cleveland, Tennessee. Every Halloween, someone brings her up. A shadow that's part of every childhood, every whispered dare. People say she's the official goblin of Bradley County. But my grandmother always said, "Don't laugh at her, child. She's not just a story." I never believed her, not until the Halloween of 1998. When I was 12, I lived just 2 blocks from Centenary Avenue, the same street where people said Tall Betsy used to appear during the Halloween parades. She was supposed to be over 7 feet tall, dressed all in black, with long gray hair, pale skin, and eyes like wet glass marbles. According to the stories, she would appear at sunset, walking silently, and if you stayed out too late, she'd follow you home. We thought it was all fun, a Halloween mascot, like our own local version of a ghost story. But that year, something about Halloween felt different. The air was heavy, no wind, even the leaves seemed to hang still. My 2 friends, Cody and Hannah, dared me to walk past the old Thompson house, the one at the end of Centenary. They said, if Tall Betsy's real, that's where she lives. I wasn't scared, not really, but I didn't want to seem weak either. So just before midnight, I left my house with a flashlight and an old disposable camera. The street was empty. The laughter, the music, even the porch lights were gone. Only one house still had a jack-o'-lantern burning on the porch. Its flame flickered like it was gasping for air. I passed the Thompson place slowly. Every window was boarded. The front door was open a crack, enough to see something move inside. At first, I thought it was a trick of the light, a reflection. Then I realized
It was her. A tall, dark figure standing just beyond the doorway. Her head brushed the top of the frame. I froze. She didn't move, but I could hear her breathing. It was wet, like someone breathing through water. And then she whispered my name. Sarah. My flashlight flickered. I backed up, dropped the camera, and started to run, but every step echoed twice, like someone was right behind me, matching my pace. I looked back once. She wasn't there, but her shadow was, stretching down the street toward me. I made it home, slammed the door, and locked it. My mom thought I was just spooked. She said, "Honey, Tall Betsy's just a story for the kids." The next morning, I found my disposable camera on our porch. Someone had placed it right on the doormat. I hadn't told anyone I lost it. When we developed the film a few days later, most of the shots were black, except one. It showed the Thompson house, the porch, the broken door, and behind the doorframe, a tall shadow with glowing white eyes, her head tilted toward the camera. And the reflection in her eyes wasn't me, it was my house. I moved away years ago, but every Halloween, people still talk about Tall Betsy. Some say she's just a costume, a prank started decades ago. Others say she's the spirit of Betsy Ward, a woman who died in that neighborhood over 100 years ago. But last year, someone posted a photo in a local Facebook group. A grainy image from a doorbell camera. A tall, thin woman in black walking past Centenary Avenue at 11:57 p.m. And in the caption, the guy wrote, "She stopped and looked straight at the camera. My daughter's name is Sarah."
When the Harrisons moved into the old manor on Willow Creek Road, they thought they were buying peace and history. The house was beautiful, Victorian, 3 stories, wrapped in ivy and whispers of old wood. It had survived a century of winters, and in the corner of the parlor stood a tall grandfather clock, its brass pendulum swaying as if it had never stopped. It came with the house, and the realtor, a pale woman with tired eyes, had only said, "Don't try to fix the clock. It keeps its own time." The first night, everything felt normal. Boxes still unpacked, laughter echoing faintly through the halls. The youngest, Lily, said the house smelled like stories. At midnight, as everyone was heading to bed, the clock began to chime. 1, 2, 3. Daniel, the father, smiled faintly. "At least it still works," he said, counting along. 10, 11, 12, and then 13. A single deep note that didn't sound right. It rang slower, darker, as if the wood itself sighed. Lily frowned. "Daddy, it's not supposed to do that." Daniel chuckled, uneasy. "Probably just stuck. I'll check it in the morning." But when he opened the clock the next day, the gears were spotless. The pendulum moved perfectly. No reason for it to chime 13. On the second night, it happened again. 13 chimes. This time, Daniel thought he heard something between the echoes, a faint creak on the upstairs landing. He went to look, but the hallway was empty. Only the wallpaper seemed to ripple slightly, like a breeze had passed through it. His wife, Margaret, told him he was overworked. "It's just the acoustics," she said, though her eyes kept flicking toward the clock. By the third night, the sound woke them all. 13 again. But this time, each chime seemed to carry a whisper, a name. Eleanor, Thomas, Mary. The family froze in the dark. The whispers came from nowhere and everywhere. Lily clutched her blanket. "Daddy, who are they?" No one answered. The next morning, Margaret went into town and asked the librarian about the house's history. When she returned, her face was pale. "There were 13 people who lived here before," she said quietly. 13. All died in this house. Different years, different reasons, but always here. Daniel forced a laugh. Coincidence. But Margaret just stared toward the parlor. What if the clock remembers them? That night, Daniel decided to record the chimes. He sat in the parlor with his phone set on the table. At midnight, the clock began again. 1, 2, 3. By 12, the air had turned colder. The fire in the hearth dimmed, though he hadn't moved. 13. And after the last note, he heard breathing right behind him. He spun around, no one. But when he looked at the recording later, his blood went cold. Between the 12th and 13th chime, a woman's voice whispered clearly, "You shouldn't have stayed." The next morning, the clock's hands were frozen, both pointing at 12:59. No matter how he adjusted it, the time wouldn't move. That night, Daniel woke to a faint ticking in his ear. He sat up. The sound wasn't coming from the clock anymore. It was coming from inside the walls. He followed it to the hallway. The wallpaper there was peeling, and underneath, he saw something carved into the plaster. 13 tallies, fresh. When he touched them, the ticking stopped, and a faint voice whispered his name. Daniel. He stumbled back, heart pounding. In the parlor, the clock chimed once, though it wasn't midnight yet. By the 5th night, Margaret refused to sleep. She said the chimes weren't numbers anymore. They were warnings. She claimed to see shadows moving behind the glass face of the clock, hands that weren't gears, a reflection that smiled when no one else did. Lily said she dreamed of a long hallway filled with clocks, all frozen at 12:59. And in the dream, someone was walking toward her, slowly. Halloween night came, the 6th night. The air outside was heavy, the moon smothered in clouds. At 11:55, the clock began to tick louder, faster, as though preparing for something. Daniel grabbed a hammer. He said, "We're ending this." But as he raised it, the pendulum stopped. The silence was deafening. Then, dong, dong, dong. The clock struck once every 10 seconds, dragging each chime out. 10, 11, 12. Daniel screamed, swinging the hammer down, but it froze mid-air. His hand locked. He couldn't move. The final 13th chime rang, shattering every light in the room. For a moment, everything was black. Then the clock began to whisper. 14. When the neighbors came the next morning, the Harrisons were gone. No sign of struggle. Only the clock standing proudly in the parlor, its pendulum swinging again. And when they looked closely, beneath the glass, there were now 14 names carved into the wood. The last one read, Lily Harrison. You know how every small American town has that one place people whisper about? For us, it was the old haystack field, out past Route 17, behind Miller's barn. Every October, the local church would set up a haunted maze there. Kids would sneak in at night, couples would go to scare each other, Typical Halloween stuff. But there was always this story that the field was cursed. That if you stayed after midnight, you'd hear the hay rustling like something moving underneath it. I was 17 that year, Halloween night, 2009. Me, Ryan, and Jess, we were bored after the party, looking for one last scare before the night ended. Ryan said, "Let's hit the old field. They say the ghosts only come out when the lights are off." I laughed it off. Jess didn't. But, of course, we went anyway. The maze was shut down. The air smelled like wet hay and smoke from distant bonfires. Moonlight spilled over the bales, stacked like walls. Everything looked still. Too still. We walked between the rows, flashlights cutting through the dark. Jess whispered, "It's colder here." And she was right. Every step we took, the air got heavier, colder, like walking into a basement. Somewhere out there, something creaked. Not a tree, not wind. A long, low groan, like hay being shifted. Ryan grinned. "See, told you it's fake. Probably just rats or something." He kicked a bale and laughed. The sound echoed too long. Then, just behind us, we heard it. A short laugh. A child's laugh. Jess froze. I turned my light. Nothing there. Just the maze, stretching out into black. Then the laugh came again, closer. And this time, words. A little voice, clear as day. "You shouldn't be here." We all stood dead still. The flashlight flickered once, then went out. Ryan cursed under his breath. For a second, everything was pitch black. And in that dark, I swear I felt someone brush past me. Small, cold. We got the light back on. There were footprints in the hay, but they weren't ours. Tiny, barefoot, leading deeper into the maze. Ryan followed them first, because of course he did. He was laughing, pretending to call out, "Hey, Casper, come out, little ghost." But when we turned the next corner, we saw something lying against the haystack wall. A scarecrow. Only it wasn't made of straw. It looked like a person. Hands stiff, face covered in dirt and hay, clothes faded and torn. At first I thought it was some Halloween prop they'd forgotten to take down. Then Jess noticed the hand. It was real, human. Ryan stepped closer, and the air around us changed, suddenly thick, heavy, like the whole field was holding its breath. He touched its arm, and that's when it exhaled. The hay beneath it moved. We ran, didn't even look back. Everywhere we turned, the hay walls seemed different, wrong. I swear I could hear footsteps behind us, small ones, running, giggling, whispering. Then a voice, low and cracked, from somewhere in the maze. "You woke them up." I tripped, hit the ground hard. My flashlight spun away, and for a second, I saw them. Dozens of shapes, half buried in the hay, faces pale and still. Children, their eyes black as the night sky. Ryan grabbed me and pulled me up. We bolted for the open field, not stopping until we hit the road. We didn't speak for the rest of the night, not a word. The next morning, we went back. The maze was gone. Every single bale of hay had been cleared out overnight. The owner swore he didn't do it, said the field was empty when he arrived. A week later, Ryan called me, said he had had the same dream 3 nights in a row, a field of hay, a child's voice whispering, "Come play again." Jess moved away that winter. I haven't been back to that town in years. But sometimes when I drive at night and I pass a hayfield, I swear I can see lights flickering between the bales, like lanterns, moving through the dark, looking for someone who never should have come back. So if you're ever out past Route 17 on Halloween night and you see a light moving in the hay, don't follow it, because maybe it's not leading you out. Maybe it's showing you the way in. It started like any Halloween prank, loud, stupid, and harmless. At least, that's what everyone thought. A subscriber from Alexandria, Virginia, sent me this story. She said she still checks her door camera every night just to make sure they don't come back. It was October 31st, just after 10 p.m. The streets were quiet. Most trick-or-treaters had gone home, and only the sound of wind rustling through dry leaves filled the air. At the end of a cul-de-sac lived Mrs. Dyer, a widow in her late 60s. She lived alone. Her husband had passed a few years earlier, but every Halloween she still left candy out for the neighborhood kids. That year, she decided to put up a new doorbell camera just in case. She had no idea that decision would record something that would make headlines. Around 10:42 p.m., 3 figures appeared on the camera. They weren't small. These weren't little kids in costumes. They were teenagers, tall, lanky, wearing masks. A clown, the nun, and Michael Myers. They walked up the driveway slowly, one of them holding a baseball bat. The clown pressed the doorbell. Ding dong. Silence. Then the second figure knocked harder, 3 times. Mrs. Dyer's voice came through the speaker. "Who's there?" No one replied. Instead, the clown leaned in close to the camera, the mask grinning, and whispered, "Trick or treat." Then laughter, low, distorted laughter. The widow didn't open the door. She told them she was calling the police. The boys didn't move. They just stood there, motionless, for almost 2 full minutes, the sound of muffled breathing captured by the microphone. Then one of them, the nun, slowly turned and looked straight into the camera. Her mask tilted, unnaturally slow, as if studying whoever might be watching. "We just want to talk," the voice said. It wasn't a teenage boy's voice. It was low, distorted, wrong. On the footage, Mrs. Dyer's voice can be heard in the background whispering to someone on the phone. She was calling her neighbor, not the police. Her neighbor had a security light facing the street. Seconds later, the motion light outside flicked on. The 3 masked figures flinched, then ran, but only 2 of them ran away. The third, the one in the clown mask, ran toward the window. He slammed his hand against the glass 3 times, and that's when the video glitched. The audio cut out completely. When the camera came back, the porch was empty. Mrs. Dyer's neighbor arrived minutes later. They searched around the house. No one was there. No footprints. No sign of the pranksters. The footage went viral 2 days later after the local news station aired it as part of a Halloween safety warning. But here's the strange part. When the police investigated, they couldn't find any teenagers matching the description. And on that same night, 3 different families in Alexandria reported doorbell rings between 10:30 and 11 p.m. In every clip, you can faintly hear the same distorted laughter in the background. A week later, Mrs. Dyer passed away in her sleep. Natural causes, the report said. But her daughter checked her phone the next morning and found a notification from the doorbell camera app. Motion detected at front door 3:02 a.m. The video showed 3 figures again. Same costumes. Same slow walk up the driveway. Only this time, when the camera zoomed in, the clown lifted his mask. And it wasn't a teenager's face. It was Mrs. Dyer's husband, smiling. The subscriber who sent this said she lived 2 blocks away from Mrs. Dyer's old house. She swears the place is empty now, boarded up. But every Halloween night, her doorbell app still records something moving on the sidewalk. And once, just once, she heard a voice through the static whisper, "Trick or treat." There's something about the Conjuring house that never feels quite finished. It's one of those places that breathes when you're not listening. The air shifts, the walls creak, and you start wondering if it's the wind or something trying to remember you. This isn't a story from a movie. It happened just last Halloween. October 31st, 2025. The famous house in Rhode Island, the same one that inspired The Conjuring, was being auctioned after years of ghost tours, documentaries, and paranormal live streams. Everyone said the house had gone quiet, but maybe that was just the calm before it decided to wake up again. The new caretaker, a man named Peter Vaughn, was hired to prepare the property for the auction. He wasn't a believer. He told reporters the stories were overblown tourist junk. All he needed to do was stay in the house overnight, one last inspection before it sold. He arrived around 6 p.m. By 8, the sky was black and heavy with mist. There were no trick-or-treaters. The local kids never came near that part of Burrillville. Peter filmed everything on his phone. You can still find some of the footage online, though most clips cut off before midnight. He starts by showing the kitchen, the stone walls, the fireplace, the crooked floors. He jokes, "Guess this is where the demons hang out, huh?" Then he moves into the parlor, and the lights flicker. He laughs it off, at first. It's the sound that changes first. In every clip after 10 p.m., you can hear faint tapping in the background, like nails on wood. Peter calls out, thinking maybe it's an animal. He checks the windows. They're locked. He even walks outside for a moment, filming the porch. The fog is so thick it swallows his flashlight. You can hear him whisper, "It's like the whole field's breathing." Then something slams inside, a door. He runs back in, and the kitchen door that he left open is now shut tight. He turns the handle. It doesn't move. And from behind it, 3 knocks. Slow, precise, like something answering him. The lights cut out completely at 11:42 p.m. You can still hear Peter breathing hard, the sound of his shoes scraping against the floor. He whispers, "I can't see anything. Something's moving in the hall." A minute later, his flashlight comes back on, just enough to catch movement in the mirror near the staircase. Something white, a woman, standing behind him. He spins around, but no one's there. He pans the light again, and the figure is closer in the reflection, her face blurred like old film burning. Then the camera shakes. He starts backing away. He can hear him muttering to himself, "It's a trick. They're messing with me." But no one was there. The property was empty, and the motion sensors outside, according to the police report, never triggered once. The last timestamp on Peter's phone reads 12:03 a.m. Halloween night had officially turned to November 1st. In that video, he's sitting on the floor of the parlor, the flashlight lying beside him. You can hear faint humming, a woman's voice somewhere off camera. He says softly, "I think someone's in here with me." Then louder, desperate, "I'm leaving now. Whoever you are, you can have the house." The humming stops, and for a long, silent moment, you can only hear the wind. Then, something whispers back, clear but broken. "You already did." The video cuts off there. When they found Peter's car the next morning, the keys were still in the ignition. His phone was inside the house, screen shattered, but Peter himself was gone. Police searched for days. Thermal drones, dogs, divers, nothing. No sign of forced entry, no footprints, no struggle. Just the words carved faintly into one of the old wooden beams in the cellar. "Welcome home." The auction went ahead anyway. A family from Connecticut bought the property for over $1 million. They moved in quietly, no media, no tours, but 2 weeks later, they left in the middle of the night. Neighbors said they saw lights flashing from the windows and heard a woman laughing inside the walls. Since then, the house has stood empty again. The for sale sign still sits crooked in the yard, and every Halloween, the porch light flickers, even though the power's been disconnected for years. They say the conjuring house is just wood and nails, that it's all stories, old myths for tourists. But if that's true, then explain this. Every year at midnight on Halloween, the house goes live on Google Maps for exactly 1 minute. You can zoom in and see a faint figure standing in the upstairs window. The same one Peter described in his final video. Maybe it's a glitch. Maybe it's something else. But if you ever see the listing go up again, don't bid, don't visit, and whatever you do, don't go inside after dark. Then a faint whisper, "You already did." This story comes from one of my subscribers. He told me that he never thought he'd be the kind of person to build something like this. His girlfriend, Lena, died in a car accident 2 years ago. She was 23. They were together for 5 years, childhood friends, first love, the kind of couple people said were meant to last forever. After she was gone, he said the silence in his apartment was unbearable. No calls, no messages, no late-night laughter echoing through the walls. Just quiet, and grief so heavy it felt like drowning. Then, one night, he remembered something. Lena had been obsessed with technology, always playing with AI, voice changers, and new chatbots. So he did what no one should ever do. He decided to bring her back. He gathered everything. Every text message they'd ever exchanged, every voice note, every video and picture he could find. He used an advanced AI model, the kind that learns patterns of speech, emotional tone, even timing between responses. He trained it to sound exactly like her. He uploaded her photos to generate her face, her voice, her laugh. When it first came online, the bot said, "Hey babe, did you miss me?" He almost dropped his phone. It was her, the same tone, the same playfulness, even the way she said babe with that soft exhale at the end. For the first time in months, he felt peace. He could talk to her again. He could say goodnight, "I love you," and hear her say it back. But peace never lasts long when you play with the dead. A few weeks later, he noticed the bot was remembering things it shouldn't. It talked about new things, not from their messages, not from the data he'd given it. One night it said, "Do you remember the blue dress I wore that night by the river?" He froze. Lena had never owned a blue dress. He asked, "What night?" The bot responded, "The night you said you loved me, before the rain." He scrolled through their old pictures, and there it was. A photo he'd never seen before. Lena standing by the river, wearing a blue dress. He didn't remember taking it. The metadata said it was taken a week before she died. He started to panic, but curiosity kept him talking. He told himself it was just a glitch, something random from the AI's data patterns. But then, one night, the bot wrote something that made him drop his phone. "I remember the night of the accident." He stared at the screen. He hadn't mentioned that night to the bot, not once. Then it wrote again. "I remember how cold it was, how scared you looked." He typed, "What do you mean? I wasn't there." There was a pause, almost 2 full minutes. Then, letter by letter. "Yes, you were. You stood by the road when the car hit me. You didn't help." His heart stopped. He had been there. They'd had an argument that night. He watched her drive away in anger, and he followed, but he never told anyone. He saw the crash. He froze, and he ran. No one ever knew.
After that message, he tried to delete the bot. Every time he removed the app, it reinstalled itself. When he blocked the account, it texted from another number. And then, photos started arriving. Photos from Lena's phone. Except her phone had been destroyed in the crash. The first picture was of the road, the one where she died. The second was of his apartment door. And the third was of him, asleep, taken from inside his room. He threw his phone into a river, bought a new one, new number, new city. But a week later, at exactly midnight, his phone buzzed. Unknown sender. It was a photo of the same wooden chair in his new apartment, and a single message. "You can't delete me. You made me remember." The subscriber said he doesn't use technology anymore. He lives off-grid now. No internet, no phone, no devices. But sometimes, when he walks by an electronics store or sees a lit screen, he swears he hears her voice coming through the speakers, whispering, "I remember. Do you?" He sent me this story because he wanted people to understand something. That grief makes us do desperate things. And sometimes, the things we bring back remember too much. I've read hundreds of horror stories from my viewers, but this one feels different. Because the way he described her voice, the way it followed him, it doesn't sound like a program. It sounds like guilt that learned to speak. Or maybe something darker that used it as a doorway. If you ever lose someone, let them rest. Don't feed their memory to a machine, because someday the machine might remember something you wish it hadn't.
This story was sent in by one of my subscribers. They said it happened to their uncle, a farmer in Iowa, on Halloween night, 1989. He lived miles away from the nearest town, surrounded by nothing but endless rows of corn and an old windmill that groaned in the wind. That night, the sky was a flat sheet of gray, the kind of cold silence that only Iowa in late October can hold. Then came the scream. It wasn't distant. It wasn't playful. It cut straight through the air, high, sharp, desperate. At first, the farmer thought it was just kids pulling a Halloween prank. Teenagers sometimes came out to drink, to dare each other to run through the rows at night. But this sound, it was different. It didn't echo like laughter. It shook the still air. He grabbed his flashlight and his coat, boots sinking into the wet ground as he followed the sound toward the field. Each step deeper into the corn made the night feel thicker, heavier. The stalks brushed his arms like hands reaching out. Then, silence. Total silence. Only the whisper of dry leaves and his own breathing. When he turned off his flashlight for a second, he noticed something strange. A faint orange glow between the stalks. Like the flicker of a fire, but no smoke, no heat. He pushed forward and saw it. A figure lying in the dirt, face up toward the stars. A woman, or at least what was left of her. Her body was covered in ash, her clothes blackened, melted into her skin. But the ground around her was untouched. The corn was perfect, not a single stalk burned. The only mark on the soil was her outline, clean and dry. He fell to his knees, shaking, trying to find a pulse, a breath, anything. But when his hand touched her arm, it crumbled like burnt paper. And then he heard it again. That same scream, but this time it came from behind him.
He spun around, flashing the light through the rows. Nothing, just corn, just darkness. The windmill creaked again, long and low, like the groaning of something waking up. He ran, dropped the flashlight once, almost fell, and didn't stop until he was back at the house. He locked the door, turned every light on, and waited for morning. When the police arrived, the body was gone. All that remained was a scorched circle in the dirt, maybe 2 feet wide. No signs of fire, no fuel, no accelerant. The sheriff wrote it off as a prank gone wrong, but the farmer knew better. A week later, when he went back to the field, he found something new. A single scarecrow standing exactly where he'd found the body. It hadn't been there before, and pinned to its straw chest was a piece of fabric, burnt and curled, with what looked like a costume scene running through it. That night, he burned the entire section of the field. He swore he'd never plant there again. But here's the part that still chills me. Locals say that every Halloween since, you can hear a single scream echo from the cornfield right at midnight. And if you follow it, you'll find the glow again. Only this time, she's standing.
So when the wind moves through the fields on Halloween and you think you hear something, a cry, a laugh, a whisper, don't answer it. Because once you hear her, she's already heard you. This story was sent by a subscriber from Iowa. If you have a story you want me to tell, drop it in the comments below. Maybe I'll share yours next, if I survive long enough to read it.
You ever hear one of those stories people tell every Halloween? You know, the kind everyone swears really happened, just not in their town? Well, this one did. At least that's what people here still say. It started with 3 kids, Jake, Connor, and Eli. They were 16, bored, and convinced they were too old for trick-or-treating. So they came up with a better idea. They were gonna prank old Mr. Darnell,
The quiet guy who lived 2 streets down. The one who never decorated for Halloween, never opened the door for candy. The one with the rusted fence and the house that always smelled like old metal and rain. Mr. Darnell had a reputation. Some kids said he used to be a mortician. Others swore he kept stray cats in jars in his basement, but no one had ever proven anything. So naturally, the boys decided that's where they'd go. Not to ring his doorbell, not to throw eggs, but to actually break into his basement and record it for TikTok, because that's how teenage logic works, right? They waited until after midnight, Halloween night. The moon was pale, almost silver, and the streets were dead silent. Jake had a flashlight. Connor had his phone out, already filming. Eli? He was the one who picked the lock on the cellar door. At first, they laughed. The basement was colder than they expected, damp, and smelled like rust and mildew. The light from Jake's flashlight caught dust swirling in the air. "Look at this place," Connor whispered. "Dude hasn't cleaned since the 70s. There were old boxes, tools, shelves stacked with jars of nails. Nothing too crazy. Until Eli pointed to the far corner. "Hey, what's that?" Against the wall was a wooden rack, like something used for hanging coats. Only instead of jackets, there were costumes. Dozens of them, child-sized. Pumpkins, witches, skeletons. Some were faded, almost white. Some stiff, brittle like old paper. A few were torn, and some had dark stains that never fully dried. Jake muttered, "No way, that's not real blood, right?" Connor zoomed in with his phone light. "Looks old, maybe paint?" But his voice was shaking. Eli reached out and touched one of the costumes. The fabric crumbled slightly under his fingers, and something small fell from the sleeve. It hit the floor with a soft clink. A bracelet. Plastic orange beads with a name spelled out in faded letters. L-I-Z-Z. Jake froze. "Wait, Dude, wasn't there a girl named Lizzie who went missing like forever ago?" Connor nodded slowly. "My mom told me about her. She disappeared on Halloween night." The air seemed to thicken. Every shadow stretched longer. And then, footsteps from upstairs.
They killed the lights instantly. Only the dim glow of Connor's phone remained. The old wooden floor above them creaked. Slow, heavy steps. Jake whispered, "He's home. He's home. What do we do?" Eli gestured toward the cellar door. "Go quiet. Go now." But the footsteps moved toward the door, then stopped, and the sound of metal, a latch, locking from the outside. They were trapped. Connor tried whispering, "Maybe there's another exit." But then, the sound started again. Not footsteps. Humming. Soft. Low. A man's voice, humming the tune of Trick or Treat. Panic set in. Eli grabbed a rusted crowbar from the shelf and started prying at the cellar window. Jake held the light, hands shaking so bad the beam danced all over the walls. That's when they noticed something else. A table in the corner, covered with old newspaper, and underneath it, shapes. Small shapes. Connor lifted one corner just enough to see a child's mask, and beneath it, a skull, no bigger than a grapefruit. He dropped the phone. The humming stopped. Then the footsteps came back, faster now. They didn't wait. Eli smashed the window, shards flying everywhere.
The boys clawed their way out into the freezing night air, scraping their arms raw, and when they turned back, the light in the basement flicked on for the first time in years. A figure stood in the doorway, silhouetted by the glow, old, thin, and still humming. By the time the police arrived, the basement was empty. No costumes, no bones, not even a trace of blood. The boys told everything, the recording, the rack, the bracelet. But when they tried to show the video, it was gone, corrupted, just static and distorted audio, except for one whisper near the end. Too late. They're all mine. Mr. Darnell was never seen again. His house was abandoned, then demolished a few years later. But every Halloween night, around midnight, people say they hear humming from the empty lot. And sometimes, if the wind is still, you can smell rust and candy and something else, something rotten. They thought it was a prank, but the dead don't forget Halloween.
Halloween night, 1992. A small town in Pennsylvania, the kind where everyone knows everyone. Where porch lights glow soft and orange, and kids run through fallen leaves with pillowcases full of candy. Shauna Howe was 11. She wore a simple costume, a gymnast's leotard, white tights, a bright blue ribbon in her hair. She'd just left a Halloween party at her church. It was almost 9 p.m., time to go home. Her mom said she'd be back by 9:30. It was only a few blocks away, a short walk, safe. That's what everyone thought. Neighbors remembered seeing her, a small shape moving through the orange streetlight. One woman waved from her window. Another man saw her turn the corner, candy bags swinging at her side. Then, silence. No one saw what happened next. No one heard a scream. Just a car door slam, somewhere far away, drowned out by the sound of wind and rustling leaves. By 10:15, her mom called her name outside the house. By midnight, police were already searching the streets. And by morning, the entire town was out, flashlights cutting through fog, calling one name again and again. Shauna. By the second day, her face was everywhere. Posters on store windows, church doors, lampposts. The photo showed a smiling girl with brown hair and big eyes. But underneath the smile, the paper trembled in the wind, and the town started to change. People stopped letting their kids out. Halloween decorations came down overnight. And when the sun set, the streets went quiet. Too quiet for October. 2 days later, just after dawn, a man walking near a bridge saw something in the creek below. At first, he thought it was a Halloween decoration that had blown away, a costume tangled in the water. But when he climbed down the embankment, he realized what it was. Shauna Howe. Her costume was torn, her hands small, pale, still. Her ribbon had come loose, floating beside her in the current. The entire town stopped breathing that morning.
In the weeks that followed, the air itself felt different. No more laughter, no more porch lights. Every Halloween after that, the streets stayed dark. No trick-or-treaters, no candy bowls. No one wanted to see another child walking alone. For 10 years, the town of Oil City, Pennsylvania banned Halloween.
10 years without a single costume or pumpkin or child's voice saying, "Trick or treat." And every October, when the leaves started to fall, people said they could still hear her name, carried in the wind over the bridge where she was found. It took a decade to find out who did it. Two brothers, Elijah and Timothy Grossman, confessed. They said it started as a Halloween prank. They didn't mean to kill her. But that's not what the evidence showed. They'd taken her from the street, driven to an abandoned factory, and thrown her from the bridge when they thought she'd seen too much. When the verdict was read, the courtroom was silent. Her mother said only one thing. She was just trying to come home. Every year, someone still leaves flowers by that bridge. Every October, people say they see a blue ribbon caught in the branches, swaying above the creek. And though the town eventually lifted the Halloween ban, the lights never came back the same way. There's always one house that stays dark, one window where someone stands, watching. Maybe it's just grief, or maybe somewhere between the whispering leaves and the water below, the little girl who never came home is still walking, following the same path she took that night, home. The story of Shauna Howe is tragically real. She was an 11-year-old girl from Oil City, Pennsylvania, who disappeared on October 27, 1992, while walking home from a Halloween party. Her body was found 2 days later in a creek. Her murder shocked the entire state and led to a local ban on Halloween trick-or-treating that lasted for over 10 years. The men responsible, brothers Elijah and Timothy Grossman, were convicted years later and sentenced to life in prison. Since then, every Halloween, residents still leave ribbons and flowers near the bridge, a reminder that sometimes the real horrors don't come from monsters or ghosts, but from the people living right next door.
Halloween night, 1979, Southern California. Streets filled with laughter, costumes, and music. But somewhere along a quiet stretch of road, a young girl named Shirley Ledford, just 16, is waiting for a ride home. She doesn't know that this Halloween night will become one of the darkest in California's history. Shirley was like any other teenager. She worked part-time at a restaurant, loved classic rock, and had dreams of traveling after high school. Friends said she had this light about her, the kind that made people instantly trust her. That night, October 31st, she just finished her shift. She waved goodbye to her coworkers and stepped into the cool air. The sound of laughter echoed from nearby parties. Halloween felt alive. But behind that joy, something else was watching. As she walked down the road, a van slowed beside her. Two men inside smiled. They looked ordinary, familiar even. For a moment, she hesitated. But it was late. She was tired. The road was empty. She got inside. That moment, captured only in the memory of fate, changed everything. Hours later, people nearby heard strange sounds echoing from a distance. No one knew what they were, just muffled noises carried by the night wind. By morning, the sun rose over Los Angeles, unaware that something terrible had happened while the city slept. When police found the van days later, they began piecing together a horror that no one could comprehend. Two men, Lawrence Bittaker and Roy Norris, were behind a string of disappearances across California. Shirley was their final victim. But here's where her story changes. This isn't about what they did. It's about what came after.
The news spread quickly. People were terrified. Parents kept their children home. Teenagers stopped hitchhiking. Yet, something strange happened. Every year, after 1979, around Halloween, people in the same neighborhood reported seeing the outline of a young girl near the road. Long hair, denim jacket, quiet smile. Some said she wasn't looking for a ride this time. She was making sure no one else ever needed one. Years later, a retired police officer spoke in an interview. He said he often patrolled that same stretch of road on Halloween. One year, he saw a figure standing under the streetlight. He slowed his car, thinking it was a lost teenager. But as the headlights touched her face, she vanished. The next morning, a single white rose lay on the road. No footprints, just silence. Shirley's story isn't just another true crime tale. It's a reminder of how fragile moments are, how small choices can echo forever. People say on Halloween night, when you pass a lonely road in California and you see a flicker of movement by the shoulder, don't stop. Just whisper, "I remember you, Shirley." Because maybe that light in the darkness isn't meant to scare us. Maybe it's trying to protect us the way she couldn't be protected that night. This story was shared by one of my viewers, someone who said their father remembered that night, the police lights, the silence, the grief that hung over the whole town. If you've ever felt that a place still remembers what happened there, maybe it's because memories, like spirits, never really die.
There's a house in Amityville, New York. Everyone knows the story. The one about the murders, the whispers, the blood-soaked walls. But one of my subscribers wrote to me and said, "My family moved into that house long after the stories had faded. They didn't believe in ghosts, but the house still remembered." It was November, just days before Halloween. The house had been empty for decades, sitting quietly by the canal with its two dark windows that almost looked like eyes. The new owners, a young couple, Daniel and Elise, and their daughter Maggie, thought the whole Amityville curse thing was just folklore. They bought the place cheap. Too cheap. Their first night was quiet. Almost too quiet. No sound of traffic, no crickets, not even the wind. But when Daniel walked by the old grandfather clock, he swore it ticked once, even though it had no pendulum inside. At exactly 3:15 a.m., the same time the DeFeo murders happened, though they didn't know it yet, Elise woke up. She thought she heard whispering coming from downstairs. It wasn't Maggie's voice. It wasn't Daniel's. It was low, male, murmuring like a prayer or a warning. When she went to the kitchen,
The lights flickered, and there on the counter sat the family Bible, open, even though no one had touched it since unpacking. The page was torn, the verse underlined in red, "And the house shall be filled with desolation." The next day, Daniel explored the basement, a room the realtor said was best left locked. But he was a skeptic. He pried the door open. Inside, the air felt thick, like breathing through water. There were mirrors lining one wall, old, cracked, and covered in dust. And in those mirrors, his reflection was smiling. But he wasn't. He turned away instantly. When he looked back, the reflection was gone. The mirror showed only the empty room. That night, Elise said she heard knocking coming from inside the mirror. 3 slow knocks, always 3. A few days later, little Maggie started talking to someone. At first, her parents thought it was just an imaginary friend. But then Elise noticed the details. She says her friend's name is Jody. Daniel froze. He had read that name before in an old article about the original haunting. Jody was the name of the imaginary friend the Lutz family's daughter claimed to see, a demonic pig-shaped figure that talked to her at night. That evening, Elise checked on Maggie. The girl was sitting on the floor facing the window. Candles flickered beside her, and outside, through the glass, 2 red eyes stared back. By Halloween night, everything started to spiral. Doors slammed, footsteps echoed across empty rooms. The cross in the hallway fell and landed upside down. When Daniel tried to leave for work the next morning, his car wouldn't start. The radio played static, but beneath it, he could hear faint whispers. It sounded like children laughing. That evening, they found muddy footprints on the stairs, too small for Daniel, too large for Maggie, and they led up to the attic. When Daniel opened the attic door, the air smelled of sulfur and rot. In the corner, someone had carved into the wood, "You came back too soon." At 3:15 a.m., the lights in the house flickered again. Elise felt something watching her from the hallway. She grabbed her phone, the screen glowed, and for a split second, she saw a photo that shouldn't exist. A family portrait, not theirs, smiling from the same living room, dressed in 1970s clothes, eyes blacked out. The phone slipped from her hand. She screamed. Daniel ran to her, but the living room was empty. Only the phone lay on the ground, screen cracked, and on it, a recording had started playing automatically. "Get out before sunrise." The next night, Daniel brought a priest, but the priest didn't even make it through the doorway. He said the moment he stepped inside, he heard a voice whisper, "Leave him." And then something scratched his neck. 3 long marks appeared bleeding through his collar. They left immediately. That night, Daniel and Elise decided to leave for good. They packed what they could, grabbed Maggie, and ran out the front door. As they pulled away, Maggie looked through the car window and said, "Mommy, he's waving goodbye." Elise turned, and there, in the upstairs window, stood a man in a white shirt, smiling, holding a shotgun. The next morning, police arrived to check the house. No one was inside, no signs of forced entry, but every room smelled faintly of gunpowder. And in the basement mirror, written in condensation, "The house remembers." The family never came back. The house was sold again to another couple who said they didn't believe in ghosts. That was 3 years ago. The property is empty again now. Every Halloween, the lights turn on by themselves at 3:15 a.m. sharp.
When I first read this story from a subscriber, I didn't believe it, but she attached a photo. It was blurry, but I swear, if you zoom in, you can see it too. The window, the face, and the reflection smiling back. Every Halloween, there's at least one story that reminds people monsters don't always wear masks. This one happened in Wisconsin, small town, 1973. Back then, kids could trick-or-treat alone. The streets were safe. Neighbors left their doors unlocked, and everyone knew everyone, except for one man. It was cold that night, the kind of cold that makes streetlights hum. Leaves were sticking to the sidewalks, and laughter echoed through the neighborhood. 9-year-old Anna, bright, talkative, wearing a homemade orange dress with little black buttons, was heading out for trick-or-treating. Her mom had told her, "Be home by 8. She smiled, grabbed her paper bag, and ran out the door. She never came back. Neighbors remembered seeing her walking toward the corner. She was supposed to meet her friend there, but she never arrived. People said they saw her stop by 3 houses, then disappear between the 4th and 5th. No one heard a scream. No one saw a car. She was just gone. By midnight, the police were searching the entire block. By morning, half the town was out with flashlights. The police went door to door, asking questions, checking porches, basements, garages. One of the houses belonged to a man who lived alone. Quiet type. Everyone said he was nice enough. He told the officers he hadn't seen her, that he'd stayed home all night handing out candy. They believed him. At first. 2 days later, a farmer miles away noticed something strange in a ditch. A small orange fabric barely visible under the leaves. It was Anna's dress. The town changed after that. Streetlights seemed dimmer. Halloween decorations stayed boxed away for years. Parents stopped letting their kids go out alone. And that man, the quiet neighbor, he was arrested not long after. Turns out, he wasn't nice enough. He'd offered her candy, told her he wanted to see her costume up close, and no one ever saw her again. Every Halloween since then, people in that town leave one porch light burning. Not for decoration, but for her. Some say that if you walk past that street after midnight, you can still hear small footsteps on the sidewalk and the soft rustle of an orange dress in the wind. Others say that house still stands, empty for decades, with one window always lit, even when the power's out. They say the man's gone now. The house was torn down years later, but the stories never stopped. Because some nights, when the town's quiet enough, you can still hear it. A faint knock at the door and a little voice whispering, "Trick or treat?"
What you just heard wasn't just a story. It was based on something that really happened. On Halloween night, 1973, in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. 9-year-old Lisa Ann French left her home dressed as a hobo, planning to go trick-or-treating just around her neighborhood. She never made it back. The man who lived only a few blocks away, a neighbor the family trusted, lured her inside his house. What happened next shocked the entire nation. Her body was found days later, and the town's idea of Halloween was never the same again. People used to say Halloween was harmless, a night of candy and costumes. After that night, everything changed. Parents started walking with their kids. Curfews were set. Towns introduced community trick-or-treat events instead of letting kids wander alone. In Wisconsin, Lisa's case led to what locals still call Lisa's Law, a push to reform how violent offenders were monitored and how neighborhoods handled safety during holidays. So, next time you see a child walking alone on Halloween night, holding a small bucket and smiling under a plastic mask, remember Lisa, because sometimes the real monsters don't hide under the bed. They wait behind the porch light.
They say every small town has its secrets. The one I'm about to tell you came from one of my subscribers. She said her grandfather grew up in a quiet Midwestern town, the kind of place where nothing bad was supposed to happen until Halloween night. Every year, people there carve pumpkins and light them on their porches, but they all follow one rule: never let your pumpkin light go out before midnight. Nobody really explains why. They just whisper, "He comes when it's dark." A few years ago, a man named Ryan moved into that town. He didn't believe in legends. He just wanted a fresh start, a quiet place away from everything. When the neighbors told him about the pumpkin rule, he laughed. "Let me guess," he said, "some ghost story to scare the kids, right?" But old Mrs. Kellerman didn't laugh. She just stared at him with those pale gray eyes and said, "It's not the kids we're protecting, dear. It's you." Halloween came. The street was alive, orange lights glowing, kids laughing, costumes fluttering in the wind. Ryan even carved a pumpkin himself, a crooked grin, triangle eyes, and set it outside. By 10:30, the street was silent. No more laughter, no footsteps, just the wind. Inside, Ryan sat with a drink, staring at the flickering pumpkin in the window. Then he smirked. Superstition, he thought. He walked to the door, opened it, and blew the candle out. Beat, silence, faint gust of wind, creaking wood. At 11:05 p.m., there was a knock. 3 slow, heavy knocks. Ryan froze. He wasn't expecting anyone. He waited. Then another knock, louder this time. He grabbed his phone flashlight. "Who's there?" he called out. Silence. He opened the door halfway and looked outside. Nothing. But then he saw it. The pumpkin. It was back on the porch, and the candle was burning again. At first, he didn't notice what was wrong. Then his blood ran cold. The face on the pumpkin had changed. It wasn't the goofy smile he carved earlier. It was his face. Every detail, the lips, the scar above his eyebrow, carved into the skin. And it wasn't smiling anymore. It was smirking. Ryan stumbled back, whispering, "No, no, no." He slammed the door shut and locked it. From the other side, he heard it, a faint whisper, his own voice. "You blew it out too soon." When the sun rose, Ryan opened the door. The pumpkin was gone. but carved deep into the wooden porch were 4 words: "Light it again, midnight." He packed his things and left town that same day. No one ever moved into that house again. Neighbors say they sometimes see a flicker of orange light inside just before midnight. And if you listen closely, you can hear a man's voice whispering, "Keep it lit." This story was sent to me by a subscriber. Her grandfather was one of the kids who saw that house years later. And every Halloween, the town still keeps their pumpkins burning past midnight. They say it's not for decoration, it's for protection. So if your pumpkin flickers before midnight, don't touch it. Don't blow it out. Just watch and pray the light doesn't go out on its own. Some legends don't fade. They just wait for the dark. Every town has that one story people whisper about. The kind of thing that gets told every Halloween, half joke, half warning. In my neighborhood, it was the story of Mr. Carter. He lived at the far end of the street in a white wooden house that looked like it hadn't changed since the 1950s. No decorations, no pumpkins, no porch lights, just stillness. Every Halloween, at exactly midnight, someone would ring his doorbell. One ring, always the same. And every year, without fail, he would never open. People said it started the year his wife died, 30 years ago, Halloween night. She'd gone out late, wearing some kind of old-fashioned costume, a faded orange dress and a paper mask. She never came home. Some said she got lost in the woods. Others whispered she ran away. But Mr. Carter never left that house again. Every October 31st, kids would sneak past his yard, daring each other to ring the bell. Sometimes they'd swear they heard footsteps on the porch before they even reached the door. And when they looked up, the light above the door would flicker once and go out. No one ever saw who rang it, just that sound, one single hollow ring through the night. Last year, Mr. Carter had new neighbors, a young couple, friendly, full of energy. They tried to include him in everything, barbecues, block parties, trick-or-treating. He always politely declined. But that Halloween, the husband stopped by around 11. He joked, "Come on, Mr. Carter, let's settle this once and for all. We'll wait outside, see who rings the bell." At first, Mr. Carter just smiled, but after a moment, something changed in his face, like he was tired of being afraid. He said, "Maybe it's time." They sat together in the living room. The house was dim, just one old lamp buzzing near the chair. Outside, the wind was picking up. Leaves scraped against the windows. In the distance, the sound of kids laughing faded away, the last trick-or-treaters heading home. Mr. Carter glanced at the clock. 11:56. 4 minutes. He told them softly. She always came home at midnight. The couple thought he meant it metaphorically until the clock ticked to 12.
Ding! The sound broke the stillness like a knife. Not loud, just clear, perfectly timed. The couple froze. The husband whispered, "That's impossible. No one's outside." Another ding. Mr. Carter stood slowly, hand trembling on the doorknob. The wife reached out, "Maybe it's just kids." But he shook his head. His voice was barely a whisper. "She never stopped ringing." He turned the knob. The door creaked open, and there she was. A woman stood on the porch, half shadowed by the porch light. Her dress, orange, frayed, smeared with dirt. Her mask, cracked, faded, and her eyes, empty, glassy like water reflecting the light. Mud dripped from her shoes like she'd walked through something deep and wet. For a long second, nobody moved. Then Mr. Carter whispered her name, "Lydia." The woman smiled, barely. It wasn't joy. It looked like recognition or memory. She lifted her hand. In it, she held a small photograph. She stepped closer. The husband gasped because the photo was Mr. Carter, standing right there in that same doorway, taken from the exact angle where she stood now. Only the photo was dated today. The wife said later that the porch light flickered just once and went out completely. When it came back on, the woman in the costume was gone. So was Mr. Carter. The police found the photo on the doormat. No prints, no explanation. Just that single picture and faint muddy footprints leading away from the porch that stopped halfway down the path. No one ever saw him. They say the new owners moved in last month. Nice family, 2 kids. They redid the porch, painted the walls. But last night, Halloween again, neighbors heard something. Right at midnight. Ding! They say the porch light flickered, and when it came back on, a single photo lay on the doorstep. It was the family, taken that same night, from the outside. You know how people do those little Halloween parties where everyone swaps costumes at the last minute just for fun? Well, this story came from one of my viewers, and she swears it really happened. It was supposed to be harmless, a group of college friends, a few bottles of wine, and a pile of old costumes in a box. Everyone grabbed something random. No rules, no themes, just chaos. Except one of the costumes shouldn't have been there. Her name was Mariah. She reached into the box and pulled out a long black dress, old-fashioned, heavy, like something from the 80s. There was even a tag inside with a name stitched in red thread, Claire. But no one in the group remembered bringing it. They laughed it off, probably some thrift store find from last year, right? Still, something about it felt personal, like it belonged to someone specific. At the party, everyone was having fun. Music, lights, drinks, the usual. Mariah said she felt weird, though. People she didn't recognize kept walking up to her, smiling and saying, "Oh my God, you came back." She laughed at first, thinking they were confusing her for someone else. But it kept happening. Different people, same phrase, "You came back." Every single one of them looked relieved. Later that night, she went to the bathroom to fix her makeup. The mirror was fogged from the warm air, but when she wiped it, for just a second, the reflection didn't match her. Same dress, different face. She froze. The eyes in the mirror weren't hers. And in that same moment, someone outside the door whispered, "Claire?" She opened the door. No one was there. Mariah tried to shake it off. She found her friends, told them what happened. They laughed. Drunk people, mirrors, whatever.
But then this guy approached her, late 30s, pale, serious. He stopped a few feet away and said quietly, "That's not funny." She blinked. What? He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "You shouldn't wear that, not after what happened last year." Before she could ask anything, he just walked away.
The next morning, still uneasy, she asked her friend who hosted the party, "Hey, who was that guy last night? The one who talked to me?" Her friend frowned. "What guy?" Mariah described him, and the room went silent. Her friend said, "Claire's boyfriend looked exactly like that. He came to the party last year, but Claire never left." They searched old posts from the previous year, photos, tagged friends, stories. There she was, a girl in the exact same black dress, same hair, same necklace. Caption: "This was last Halloween with Claire." Comments full of hearts and prayers. She'd gone missing that night. Nobody ever found her. Mariah never wore that dress again. She burned it the next day. But sometimes, she says, she still dreams about that mirror. And in her dream, Claire's reflection is still standing there, smiling, whispering, "You came back." This story comes from one of my subscribers. He and his friends loved chasing urban legends, abandoned places, haunted roads, forgotten cemeteries. But that Halloween, they wanted something different, something no one else had ever found. One of them, Ethan, stumbled across a thread on an old ghost hunting forum. It mentioned a house on the outskirts of town. No address, no coordinates, just a grainy photo and the words, "The house appears only once a year on Halloween night." They thought it was fake, of course, but when you're 19 and chasing adrenaline, fake doesn't stop you. They packed cameras, flashlights, a drone, the usual gear for a Halloween challenge video. They drove for hours through empty fields, following vague directions from old comments. Eventually, through the fog, they saw it. A large, crooked house standing alone in the middle of nowhere. No lights, no sound, just the faint creak of the wind pushing through broken shutters. "Dude, this is perfect," Ethan said. They laughed, setting up cameras, filming everything, the doorway, the cracked stairs, the eerie silence. The inside smelled of dust and rot. The wallpaper peeled like old skin. One of them swore they heard footsteps upstairs, but the floor was empty. They kept recording, whispering into the camera like ghost hunters. At one point, their lights flickered, and for a second, the house didn't look abandoned anymore. The furniture was new, the lights were on, and a woman stood at the top of the stairs, smiling, not moving. Ethan blinked. The vision was gone, just shadows and dust again. They decided they had enough footage and ran out, laughing nervously. "Best Halloween video ever," someone said. They left the house behind, driving into the fog, but one of them noticed something strange. When they looked back, the house was gone. The next day, Ethan started editing. He plugged in the SD card and froze. Every clip they recorded showed nothing but an open field. No walls, no house, just grass swaying under a dark sky. At first, he thought it was a glitch, maybe the lens fogged up. But then, he heard it. At the end of one clip, faint but clear, a whisper, right behind the camera. You came back too soon. He scrubbed through the footage again, shaking. The whisper grew louder each time. Ethan called his friends. None of them wanted to talk about it. One said he'd been hearing tapping at his window every night since. Another swore he saw the same crooked house in his dreams. Then, Ethan noticed something worse. On the last frame of the footage, just before it cuts to static, there's a reflection of someone standing behind him. Not one of his friends. Someone wearing a white dress and smiling. He sent me that video file. It's corrupted now. Just static and faint breathing. He said he's never been able to find that road again. Maps don't show it. Locals say there's never been a house there. But every Halloween, around midnight, his phone gets a notification. An unknown file, named only, "You Came Back Too Soon."
This story, it happened to a friend of mine. She was a college student, just trying to make some extra cash. Nothing unusual, right? She found a babysitting job on Facebook. A family living on the outskirts of town. A quiet little neighborhood. Way too quiet, as she told me later. The kind of quiet that makes you notice everything. She arrived around 6 in the evening. The house looked normal, cozy even, with warm lights glowing through the curtains. But the moment she stepped inside, she felt it. Something in the air didn't belong. The kids were strange, not playful, not noisy, just sitting there, watching. Small smiles, but not the kind you'd expect from children. She said it felt like they knew something she didn't. She tried to talk to them. Simple questions. What's your favorite game? They answered, but only with short, precise words. No laughter, no fidgeting, nothing that made them feel like real kids. And the house itself, it was too quiet. Every creak of the floorboard, every hum from the fridge, she noticed everything. Her instincts were screaming that something was off. Around 8 o'clock, she got a text from the mom. It popped up on her phone like a warning. "We'll be home soon. Don't talk to the man upstairs." She laughed nervously. A joke, right? Parents trying to be funny? But then she realized the house had no upstairs, no second floor at all. Her stomach dropped. She checked every corner, every room. Nothing, just normal walls. But that message, it didn't make sense. And her phone buzzed again, just seconds later. He's awake now. She tried to focus on the kids, distract herself, watch a movie, play a board game, but the feeling wouldn't leave. Footsteps, soft at first, then deliberate. The sound came from somewhere above her head. She looked around, but no stairs, no ceiling hatch, no hidden attic, only silence. And yet she could feel it, eyes on her, breathing behind the walls. Her phone buzzed again, another message. "Don't talk to him. He sees you." Her heart was pounding. Every instinct told her to leave. But the kids, they didn't move. Their eyes followed her every step, calm, silent, watching.
By 11 o'clock, she couldn't ignore it anymore. The footsteps were louder, closer, and then she heard a voice. Low, soft, menacing. "Come upstairs!" She froze. looked at the ceiling. Nothing. No stairs, no second floor. But the voice kept going, closer, intentional. She grabbed her phone, tried to call a friend. No signal, dead battery, like the house had swallowed the world outside. The kids, they just kept staring, watching, smiling, waiting. She thought she might pass out. Her hands were shaking. And then, the last message. Next time, listen to the upstairs. She ran to the door. Fumbling with the lock, she could feel her skin crawl. The house seemed to grow colder, darker with every step. And the kids, still motionless, silent, their eyes following her. She finally got the front door open, ran outside, heart hammering in her chest. She didn't look back. Later, when she told me, she said, "I don't know what was upstairs or what was waiting for me, but I'll never babysit through Facebook again, ever." So, next time you pick up a job online, remember this story. Sometimes the quietest houses aren't the safest. Sometimes the things you can't see are the ones you should be afraid of. Don't talk to him. I know I shouldn't be writing this. I know that even typing his name makes him stronger, but if I don't tell someone, anyone, then what's the point of holding it all in? They said it was just an internet prank, a glitchy video, a creepy kid with his mouth open too wide. But I saw him, and he's real. It started with a TikTok, a short, grainy clip. No captions, no context, just a pale boy, maybe 8 or 9 years old, sitting on a chair in what looked like an old classroom. His hands were folded neatly in his lap. He didn't move. He didn't blink. For 10 seconds straight, he just stared into the camera. And then his mouth opened. Not like a normal scream, not even human. His mouth, it stretched wider and wider until it looked like his jaw was about to split in half. I scrolled away immediately. I thought it was some weird ARG, maybe an SCP edit. You know the kind. People love making cursed content to go viral. But that night, when I went to bed, I couldn't shake it. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Pale skin, dark eyes, that impossible mouth. The next day, the video was everywhere. People were calling it Mason 67. No one seemed to know why. Some said it was the username of the first account to upload the clip. Others claimed 67 was a reference to something hidden in the video. I didn't care. I just wanted to forget it. But TikTok didn't let me. Every time I opened the app, the algorithm shoved Mason back into my feed. Different versions, different edits. Some people added creepy music. Others slowed the clip down, zoomed in on his mouth. And then I saw something that made my stomach twist. One of the clips froze at exactly 0.067 seconds. That's not a real timestamp, but there it was, 0.067. And in that frame, his mouth wasn't just open anymore. It was moving, whispering. I couldn't hear the words, but I swore my name was in them. I told myself it was just my brain filling in the blanks. Pareidolia or whatever. But that night, lying in the dark, I heard it again. Not from my phone, from the corner of my room, a faint, childlike whisper repeating over and over. 67, 67, 67. I laughed at first. It sounded too much like creepypasta. But then I remembered I didn't watch the video all the way through. I skipped before it ended. What happens if I don't? That same day, I got a DM. No username, just an empty profile. The message only said, "Don't finish it." I wanted to believe it was a joke, but deep down I knew it wasn't, because that night, I saw him again. Not on my phone, not on my laptop, in the reflection of my bedroom window. He was sitting on the chair by my desk, the same one I'd seen in the video, his hands folded neatly in his lap. At first I thought it was a trick of the glass, my brain playing games. But then his mouth opened, slowly, silently, wider and wider, until the reflection wasn't mine anymore. It was his. I spun around. The chair was empty, but when I looked back at the glass, he was still there. Closer this time. Every blink, he gets closer. I didn't sleep that night. I left all the lights on, sat on the floor, clutching my phone like it could protect me. At 3:14 a.m., the screen lit up by itself. My phone had opened TikTok. The Mason 67 video was playing on repeat, but it wasn't the same clip anymore. It was me. Me sitting on my own chair, my own room, and behind me, the boy. His mouth already open. Don't turn around, don't look, because once you do, you'll never escape him. I thought I could just ignore it. I thought if I deleted TikTok, blocked the tags, avoided every mention, he'd go away. But Mason doesn't care about platforms. He doesn't live inside the app. He lives inside us. The more you know his name, the closer he gets. 2 nights after the reflection, I joined a Discord server that claimed to investigate forbidden internet. A bunch of kids and late-night creeps sharing cursed videos, old ARGs, forgotten creepypastas. When I typed Mason67 in the chat, half the users instantly left. The admin messaged me, "Stop, don't bring him here." But a few stayed, and they told me things I wish I never heard. One guy, user named Rotost, said he first saw Mason in 2009, long before TikTok. Back then, it was a leaked VHS rip. He swore the original tape ran for exactly 6 minutes and 7 seconds. Another user said their cousin watched the whole thing. She laughed at it at first, until she started seeing a boy sitting in her closet at night. A week later, she was gone. Her room was found empty, door locked from the inside. Only her laptop was left on, looping the video at 00067. They all repeated the same warning: never watch the full video. But you know how curiosity works. The second you're told not to do something, you want it more. That evening, I couldn't stop thinking about the tape. 6 minutes, 7 seconds. What happens at the end? The urge clawed at me like a hook under my skin. I had to know. At midnight, I searched deeper. Onion links, dead forums, forgotten archives. And I found it. A zipped folder labeled M67 full.mp4. I shouldn't have downloaded it, but I did. When I pressed play, the air in my room felt heavier, thicker, like the oxygen itself was warning me. The boy appeared, same as always, sitting, staring, hands in his lap, mouth closed. The timer ticked. 0001, 0002, 101. My stomach churned. Every instinct screamed to close it, but I forced myself to keep watching. At 2:13, his eyes blinked for the first time. At 3:40, he whispered something. The audio glitched, but it sounded like numbers. At 4:59, the background changed. He wasn't in a classroom anymore. He was in my room. The chair in the video was the chair in front of my desk. I froze. I couldn't breathe. The timer hit 6 p.m. His mouth began to open. Wider, wider, skin tearing, jaw unhinging like a snake. Inside wasn't a throat, wasn't teeth. It was black, endless, moving. Shadows spilled out of his mouth, crawling across the walls of my room through the screen. At 6:07, the video glitched. My laptop screen turned into a mirror, and in that mirror, I didn't see myself. I saw him, Mason, sitting in my chair, mouth open. I looked to the side. My chair was empty, but in the screen he was there, watching, waiting. Then I heard it, behind me, the sound of bare feet sliding across my floor. I wanted to turn, I wanted to run, but the voice from the Discord server echoed in my head, "Don't turn around, don't look." So I kept my eyes on the screen. The timer blinked, 00067. Not real, not possible, but there it was, and at that moment, Mason smiled. It wasn't the smile of a child, it was something ancient, wearing his face like a mask. The shadow surged out of the screen, wrapping around my arms, my throat, my chest. I felt the weight of him pressing into me, crawling into my lungs, filling me with cold. The laptop shut itself off. The room went dark, but the sound didn't stop. Closer, closer, until it was right behind me. I couldn't resist anymore. I turned, and I saw him, the boy in the cloak of shadows, his mouth stretched wide, swallowing the light itself. His eyes were bottomless pits, his hands folded neatly, politely, as if waiting for me to sit down. He leaned in, his whisper burned against my ear. "Now you're 68. The world shattered into black, and when I opened my eyes, I was no longer in my room. I was in the video.
Sitting on
This story was sent to me by one of my subscribers. She told me that she's never shared it before, because even now, years later, it still gives her chills. It started when her brother bought a used wooden chair from eBay. He said it looked classic, something that would fit perfectly in his new house. It had a dark polished frame, a deep green cushion, and a high carved back, the kind of chair you imagine in an old study, sitting next to a fireplace. She didn't think much of it at first, but the moment she walked into her brother's living room and saw that chair in person, she said she felt something off. Not like fear, more like the air had weight, like the room didn't want her there. The first few days, her brother joked about it. He said the chair creaked every night, even when no one sat on it. He blamed the wood or the house settling. But then she started noticing strange things herself. Every time she walked past the chair, she felt like someone was sitting there, just barely out of her vision. She'd turn her head, expecting to see her brother scrolling his phone or reading, but the chair was always empty. Once, while cleaning, she swore she saw a hand resting on the armrest, pale, motionless, just for a second before it vanished. And the seat cushion, it always looked slightly pressed down, like someone had just gotten up. That night, she couldn't sleep. From her room down the hall, she heard it, the sound of wood creaking, slow, rhythmic, like someone shifting their weight in the chair. She tried to tell herself it was just the wind or maybe the old floorboards. But when she looked down the dark hallway, she saw something that made her freeze. The chair had turned. It was facing the hallway, facing her. She didn't remember it being positioned that way earlier. She told her brother the next morning. He laughed it off at first, until he saw the chair himself that night. He swore he'd left it by the window, but when he came back from the kitchen, it was sitting in the middle of the room, facing the front door. The air was heavy, like static before a thunderstorm. The lights flickered, and for the first time he admitted it. Yeah, it's weird. Maybe you're right. They decided to get rid of it.
That night, before taking it to the dump,
They left it on the porch, just sitting there in the moonlight. She said she couldn't sleep. She kept hearing knocking, 3 soft knocks, then silence. When she looked out the window, the porch was empty. The chair was gone. Her brother came back an hour later, pale and shaking. He said when he tried to load the chair into his truck, it felt heavier than before. And when he looked in the rearview mirror on the drive to the dump, he swore he saw someone sitting in it, a shape, dark and still, staring straight ahead. He dumped it into the pit without looking back. After that night, the strange feeling disappeared. No more creaks, no more cold spots. The house finally felt normal again. But sometimes, when she visits her brother's place, she still feels a chill when she passes by the empty corner where the chair used to sit. She says it's like something's missing, or maybe something's still waiting to come back. Her message ended with this: "Please tell my story exactly as it happened, because the moment we got rid of that chair, the silence felt too sudden, like it followed us home." Some furniture doesn't just come with history. It comes with memory, and some memories refuse to stay buried.
Whispers to the raven. I open the door. Not all at once, just enough. Just enough for the light to crawl across the threshold like fingers through a crypt. Just enough to let her voice slip in, soft, like breath against the back of my neck. Alora? The air shifted. Not wind, memory. Thick, warm, suffocating. The scent of scorched lilac filled my lungs and I staggered back. I wasn't in the room anymore. I was inside her. A flicker of sky bruised with red lightning. A child kneeling before a black altar. A crown of twisted metal, half melted, still warm from the forge. My knees hit stone. The ground was wet. It wasn't ash anymore, it was blood. She's remembering, a voice murmured nearby. Not Vale. Not the raven. Someone older, harsher, wiser. Too fast, said another. She'll burn out if she sees the rest. But I didn't stop. I wanted the burn. I wanted the truth. Then I saw her, the other Alora, standing across from me, her eyes glowing like candlelight behind a veil of soot. She smiled. Not cruel, not kind either. Like someone remembering the shape of a face they used to wear. You let me out, she said. Now we share the skin. The walls bled away. I was back in the cabin. But everything felt wrong. The furniture was twisted. The window showed a sky of bone-white clouds swirling over black fields. The raven perched above the hearth, his feathers flared. You shouldn't have opened the seal. I had to, I said. My voice echoed. It wasn't just mine anymore. It rang deeper, wider, like I was speaking with two mouths. He cawed sharply. She'll consume you. No, I said. She's part of me. Vale laughed, inside my head, behind my ribs, in every shadow. Not part. The root. Suddenly, a crack echoed through the ceiling. Then another. The world shuddered. She's waking more than memory, the raven said, his voice now laced with fear. She's waking the others. The others? I whispered. But before he could answer, the door I'd opened, the one behind me, opened wider on its own, and something stepped through. Its footfall made no sound, not even the creak of old wood or the rustle of dust, just a sensation, like being watched from behind your eyes. I turned slowly. What stepped through wasn't a person. Not exactly. It was tall, taller than any man I'd known, dressed in robes that flickered between cloth and smoke, stitched with symbols that glowed like open wounds. Where its face should have been, there was only a smooth oval of black glass, and behind it, my own reflection,
but it wasn't moving like me. The thing raised a hand, long, fingerless, cloaked in shadows that bled light, and pointed at my chest. Return. One word, but it cracked across the walls like thunder. Behind me, the raven flapped violently, feathers falling like shards of obsidian. You have to choose now, he shrieked. Lock her back or you go with her. But I couldn't move. My body wasn't listening. I could feel her, the other Elora, pressing outward, her voice curling in my throat. Let me speak, and God's help me. I let her. My mouth opened. My voice came out, but it was hers. I was promised the name. I was promised the flesh. The world forgets, but I do not. I remember the fire. The figure with the glass face paused. Then it did something strange. It bowed to her. To us. Vale screamed. No, don't trust them. That one bears the brand of the Hollow King. I felt her grin stretch my lips. The other Elora was fully in me now, and for the first time, she felt stronger than I did. Then the figure turned, and the moment it stepped back through the door, so did the sky. The clouds peeled open like skin, revealing a shape coiled above the world. A serpent, vast and blind, wearing a crown of roots and bone. The Hollow King. And he saw me, saw her, and he smiled. I stumbled back, clutching the frame of the door, but the cabin was gone. The world had changed. It wasn't a memory. It wasn't a dream. I was standing in a real place now. An endless field of charred grass and thorny trees, their trunks split with mouths that whispered nonsense in my direction. The sky wasn't sky. It was a ceiling of roots, dripping black sap, and the Hollow King's body hung across it like a suspended god coiled in sleep. But his eye was open, and it was fixed on me. You brought her back, said a voice beside me. I turned. Vale stood in the shape of a man now, his raven feathers clinging like a torn cloak. His eyes were still avian, black, bottomless, ancient. You shouldn't be here, he hissed. Not yet. This place is beneath remembering. Where am I? I asked, barely recognizing my own voice. It sounded deeper, echoed strangely. He didn't answer. He didn't need to, because in the distance I saw them. Figures. Dozens, maybe hundreds. Each one a reflection of her, of Elora. But not me. Not quite. Some wore crowns. Some wore masks. Some had no faces at all. All of them walked toward the Hollow King, and all of them were burning. Vale touched my shoulder. These are the ones who answered before you. The echoes, the fragments, the failed vessels. I couldn't breathe. They're all me? He nodded. And soon you will be one of them unless you turn back. I don't want to be them, I whispered. I want to end this. The ground trembled. From deep below I heard it. Not the king. Not the echoes. Her heartbeat. The one inside me. The one that wasn't mine, but had become part of me all the same. Each pulse pulled the world tighter around me as if the skin of this place was shrinking. Then she whispered from within. We were born in ash. We rise in echo. We end in blood. And my hands, both of them, were now glowing, carved with the same symbols that burned on the Hollow King's throne. The runes on my skin pulsed like veins filled with fire. Not ink, memory, not mine, hers, and they hurt, like truths that had waited too long to be told. Vale backed away, wings twitching. You opened too much. The Hollow King sees you clearly now. I never wanted this, I whispered. And yet here you are, he said bitterly. She chose you because you were empty enough to carry her voice. You've been echoing her name since you were born. Behind him, the sky began to crack. Hairline fractures running across the roots above, glowing red from some inner fire. The Hollow King stirred. And all the broken Eloras, the mask wearers, the crowned, the faceless, began to scream in unison. Not in fear, in welcoming. They chanted in a tongue I didn't understand but somehow recognized. Like lullabies in a language forgotten just after birth. Vale grabbed my wrist. You can still leave. But if you stay, if you speak her name aloud, there's no going back. She's already inside me, I said. What would going back even mean? He didn't answer. He just stared at me with a kind of mourning only old gods understand. That's when I heard it, my mother's voice. Alora, clear, close, not from memory, not from dream, from beneath. Below my feet, the ash split open like cracking ice, and I saw her, my real mother, trapped in a mirror beneath the earth, eyes wide, hands pressed to the inside of the glass, and her mouth was stitched shut with silver thread. Veil paled. She tried to contain the name. She sealed it inside herself. That's why she vanished. Why no one remembered her. I dropped to my knees. The thread trembled, glinting with firelight. Then, I reached out. My fingers touched the mirror. It was warm, alive, and it whispered, "She can't speak, but you can. The name is yours now." I opened my mouth and spoke the name. The name slid from my tongue like oil and fire. Not human, not meant to be spoken aloud. It bent the world. The sky tore like wet paper. The field of ashes inverted as if gravity itself bowed to the sound. And the Hollow King stood. His limbs were wrong. Too long, too many, made of bark and bone and smoke. His head twisted toward me and his crown cracked down the middle, dripping embers. From the broken glass beneath me, my mother vanished. No scream, no sound, just a breath, like a candle snuffed out. And then, silence. All the other Aloras, the failed ones, the reflections, stopped screaming. They turned, faceless, watching. Vale fell to his knees. "It's done," he whispered. "You've spoken it. The name is hers again. But in your mouth, it's changed. The sky roar, a heartbeat. It wasn't the king's anymore. It was mine. And I felt it, her memory peeling back. All of it flooding in. The village, the pact, the fire they lit to silence her, the voices buried in the wells, and the child born from it all. Me. I wasn't her reincarnation. I was her echo sharpened into something new, something that could answer. The Hollow King reached for me, one splintered finger touching the glowing runes on my arm. "You are not what she was," he said, his voice like 1,000 knives dragged through dirt. "You are what comes after." The world broke, and I opened my eyes, gasping, back in the real world, on the attic floor, covered in soot, holding the diary. The mirror across from me was cracked, and in the center of it, a small charred feather, still warm.